We're following a big decision out of Missouri. A judge has now just ruled that they're going to allow the state's last abortion clinic to remain open. The facility's license was set to expire at midnight, and this was after a dispute with Missouri's health department. But the judge today ordered a temporary stay. And this ruling is really a victory for Planned Parenthood, who had been fighting to keep the clinic open. The state health department had claimed that the clinic was not operating by its standards, citing, quote, deficiencies. CBS News reporter Kate Smith first broke this story earlier this week about the Planned Parenthood clinic, and she joins me now on set. Kate, I've got to ask you, was there any precedent for this judge to follow, and are you surprised by this ruling?
There's a little bit of precedent here. So we had very similar situations in Kentucky and then also Mississippi. Those are two states that also were down to just one abortion clinic. And in both of those cases, both a circuit court and eventually a federal court ruled that you have to have an abortion clinic in a state. And whatever deficiencies that might be going on, they are less important than the undue process that women don't have to deal with in order to get abortion via Roe v. Wade, of course, and Planned Parenthood v. Casey.
So the sense to me is that they were going to abide by what they believe were the standards set up by Roe v. Wade to keep this clinic open, and that's really how the judge came to this ruling?
Exactly. So we're waiting on a full decision. All we saw right now is that the temporary restraining order has been granted. And basically what that means is that until the state and Planned Parenthood can come to an agreement about that license, which has been in dispute, as we know, since Tuesday, they're going to be able to stay open, and service won't be interrupted while those kind of, bureaucratic decisions are being made.
Okay, do you know what the issue was for getting this licensing renewed? What is the issue that the state has that they feel Planned Parenthood isn't up to par on?
So there were two things that were going on with the clinic. There was the license renewal on one camp, and then on the other camp, there was this unknown investigation that the state gave absolutely no guidance to Planned Parenthood or to the media what that investigation was. It was an anonymous patient complaint, and they said that they weren't able to finish the investigation of that complaint. The reason being is because they asked for interviews from 7 physicians that work at the clinic. Now, only 2 of those are Planned Parenthood employees. So Planned Parenthood offered the interviews of those 2 people, but the remaining 5 were just residents at local colleges. And those colleges said, this is a terrible idea for you to sit for these investigations.
Why?
You have no idea what they're going to ask you. We have no idea what the scope is. And they've already threatened.
Why not just be honest?
Exactly. I mean, but the problem is Missouri has so many very onerous license procedures that they have to follow in the state. For example, they have to give women 72 hours before when they come to their first appointment and for the procedure. Things like that. The hallways have to be a certain width. The doorways have to be a certain width. And because of all of these little pieces that the state has made this clinic comply by, they're very worried because they don't know, okay, well, you interpreted that to mean this 2 years ago. What are you interpreting that to mean now? And they don't know, which is why the colleges that have residents that work in Planned Parenthood said, it's not worth it for us. We don't have to. There's nothing that would, compel us to do this. And so we're not going to do it. And that's where we are now.
And just yesterday, on Thursday, we know that Louisiana, the Democratic governor of Louisiana, signed what's called the heartbeat bill, meaning that if you can detect a heartbeat, there's a restriction on abortion in that state. You're seeing a lot of states either down to at least one clinic. We're looking at the graphic here about these new abortion restrictions. And then yesterday, we were watching the governor of Missouri come out saying it would be reckless for any judge to grant a temporary restraining order for this particular abortion clinic. So when you're looking at these really restricted laws on states, why is this happening now?
That's a great question. And there's a couple things of why people think that this is happening. Now, the first, of course, is the makeup of the Supreme Court. For the first time, you see a conservative majority, and so therefore the potential to chip away at what means legal abortion in the United States. Does it mean full access? Does it mean viability? Does it mean a heartbeat? And so for the first time since the 1970s, anti-abortion rights activists feel as if there is an opportunity to redefine what legal abortion is in the United States. The second part is that with the 2020 election coming up, abortion is a hot topic, right? It gets people to the voters' box.
Yeah.
And especially for these religious groups, you know, that is the deciding factor for a lot of different people. So,
but there are some such restrictive things, such as in cases of incest or rape, that there are no exemptions. Even back in 1973, you look at the research, and religious groups agreed back then in 73 that there should be these exemptions.
Yeah.
So what I don't understand now is, how are we 50 years later becoming more restrictive on just some basic issues that back when this was approved by the Supreme Court, passed by the Supreme Court, that the public mindset hasn't changed?
I mean, that's a great question. And one of the things about the rape and incest clause, Missouri also, when they passed their heartbeat bill, they didn't give a rape and incest clause. Mississippi didn't. Alabama didn't. And the reason being is that if you give that clause, you are therefore saying that, oh, in certain cases, we do agree with abortion. Now, if you want to redefine, say, what personhood is, or you want to redefine what viability is, you can't have that exception, because you're ceding something to a pro-abortion advocacy group, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think what they're doing is they're trying to create laws that they feel as if have a good and solid challenge to Roe v. Wade. Mm-hmm. And that's why you can't do that. And of course, you have to note that none of these have been enacted yet, because they are blatantly unconstitutional with the laws that we have right now.
I want to show you a tweet. We were waiting to see what the CEO and president of Planned Parenthood had to say. This is Dr. Leanna Wen. She says that this is a victory for women across Missouri, but this fight is far from over. We have seen just how vulnerable access to abortion care is in Missouri and in the rest of the country. We'll keep fighting these attempts to end access to health care no matter what. I mean, for people who support her viewpoint, I don't mean to pour cold water, but aren't certain Republicans and more right-wing groups winning on this with restricted access across the country?
We don't necessarily know that yet. So earlier this week, we had the Supreme Court look at abortion for the Indiana rules, and they looked at two different things. One was the burial of fetal remains from abortions, and then the other was an abortion ban. And they decided to block the abortion ban, which kind of indicates that perhaps they don't have the appetite to actually chip away at Roe v. Wade. So while these states have been successful in introducing and passing these laws, we're not promised that they're actually going to be enacted or even considered by the Supreme Court at this point in time.
Kate Smith, I want to thank you for your reporting. You broke the story initially early this week on the Missouri clinic being the last one potentially to stay open and possibly shutting down. And today we're seeing that this is a temporary. And how much time do we think that they have on this? Do we know?
It's unclear at this point.
Okay. Yeah. Congratulations. Thank you for your reporting and for joining us, Kate Smith.
Thank you.